8 years ago, my husband Nathan left me because his ex-girlfriend Jessica manipulated him into believing I was pregnant by another man. Leaving him was one of the hardest decisions of my life, yet it was also one of the best. Just as I thought my painful past was behind me, Nathan reached out of nowhere, wanting to meet the son he'd abandoned. Given everything that happened, I couldn't let him disrupt the life we'd rebuilt. Nathan and I had met over a decade ago, and for 2 years it felt like we had an unbreakable connection. When he proposed, I felt like the luckiest woman alive, as if our relationship was meant to last forever. I believed Nathan was my soulmate and that we would face anything together. Just a few months after our wedding, however, Nathan lost his job. The situation was rough, but I was confident we could pull through it. We had some savings to fall back on, and I was working full-time, so I figured things would be okay, until he found something new. For months he struggled through interview after interview, but I kept reassuring him. Finally, he landed a new job and we were overjoyed, celebrating the end of our difficult chapter with a special dinner. Little did I know that this new job would begin a painful unraveling of everything we'd built. Nathan came home from his first day looking unusually stressed. When I asked him what was wrong, he hesitated before telling me that Jessica, his ex-girlfriend, worked there as well. I knew a little about Jessica. They had dated for 3 years, and Nathan had even proposed to her, only for her to reject him and end the relationship. He had spoken of her rarely, but I knew their breakup had been difficult for him. Although seeing her again obviously bothered him, I reassured him that we could handle this together. He even offered to quit if it made me uncomfortable. But it didn't feel fair to ask that of him. I told him we were adults and could navigate it. I trusted him. But inside, I felt uneasy knowing he'd be around someone who had once meant so much to him. To ease my concerns, he assured me that Jessica worked in a different department and he wouldn't interact with her. He promised to tell me if anything ever happened between them. His reassurances made me feel better, and as the weeks went on, my anxiety over Jessica faded. Nathan and I had always had a trusting relationship, and I didn't see any reason to question him. Now looking back, I see how naive I was, but at that time, trust was a pillar of our marriage. Things were good for the next few months until one evening when Nathan told me he needed to go on a business trip to meet with a new client, which could potentially lead to a promotion. I was thrilled for him and even suggested I tag along to make it a mini getaway. But he quickly said that it was a guys-only trip, and that none of the men on his team were bringing their partners. I tried not to be disappointed, reasoning with myself that he would be working the entire time, so it wouldn't be worth it to go. When he returned, I eagerly asked him how things had gone, and if a promotion might be in the works, but he was vague, saying he might need to go back a few more times. As the months passed, Nathan was traveling at least once a month, each time without any clear updates on a promotion. Rather than suspecting anything, I worried that he was working too hard without seeing any payoff. I kept trusting him, never questioning his trips or asking about Jessica, who rarely crossed my mind by this point. I felt it was my role to support him and trust in our marriage. 5 months into his new job, I missed my period and decided to take a pregnancy test. It came back positive. To my surprise, this pregnancy was unplanned, but I felt it could be the beginning of a wonderful new chapter for us. Our finances were finally stabilizing, and his career seemed to be going well. Feeling excited yet nervous, I waited to tell him when he returned from his latest business trip. That night, Nathan came home looking unusually stressed. I had stayed up late, hoping to share the news with him and make the night special. As soon as I told him, though, his reaction was anything but joyful. Instead of excitement, he looked at me with a strange expression, and then he asked, "Whose baby is it?" At first I thought he was joking, but his expression didn't change. My heart sank. He went on, insisting I just tell him the truth, even accusing me of cheating while he'd been away on business trips. I was stunned, unable to comprehend why he would say such things. When I asked him where this was coming from, he finally admitted that Jessica had suggested that I might be unfaithful, hinting that I'd become too distant since he started traveling. Jessica had even implied that a loyal wife would never let her husband travel so often. My heart broke as I realized he believed her. Jessica, the same woman who had once left him, had planted seeds of doubt that made him abandon our relationship. Despite my pleas, Nathan wouldn't listen. He accused me of wanting him to travel so I could be with someone else, and no matter what I said, he seemed unmoved. I even offered to take a paternity test, which felt degrading, but I wanted to prove my loyalty. He refused, saying he wouldn't raise another man's child and demanded I get an abortion if I wanted to stay married to him. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. In that moment, my sadness turned to anger. Knowing he had no intention of staying, I told him I would raise the child alone and agreed to the divorce. He stormed out, and that was the last time we shared our home. I was left to process the pain, confusion, and betrayal alone, my heart shattered by his cruel choice to believe Jessica's lies over me. Later, I learned through friends that his business trips had actually been secret getaways with Jessica. She had slowly poisoned his mind, using every opportunity to turn him against me. It hurt to know he would rather believe the manipulations of his ex than the vows we had made together. The divorce was an ordeal, feeling more like a surreal nightmare than reality. Nathan clung to his belief that I had betrayed him, refusing to listen to my side and repeating Jessica's lies. He spread rumors to our friends and family, claiming I had used him, that I had been unfaithful. He never once questioned whether he had been manipulated. After the divorce, I tried to reach out to let him know when our son was born, but he ignored me entirely. Raising my son alone was one of the hardest things I'd ever done, and there were countless nights where the pain felt unbearable. But slowly, with the support of my family, I began to rebuild my life. As the years passed, I worked to move on from the pain Nathan had caused. Eventually, I met a man who was everything Nathan wasn't: kind, supportive, and deeply committed. He treated me and my son with respect, love, and patience. We dated for 2 years before marrying, and he eventually adopted my son, giving him the stable, loving father figure he deserved. For the first time in years, I felt happy and at peace, and I truly believed my painful past with Nathan was finally behind me. But just a few weeks ago, out of nowhere, I received a message from Nathan. Seeing his name on my phone was jarring, bringing back memories I thought I'd moved past. In his message, he explained that he and Jessica had broken up after she'd cheated on him with multiple men. He expressed regret for letting her come between us, and admitted he had thought about me and our son constantly over the past 8 years. Now he wanted to reconnect, to make up for lost time and be a father to our son. The irony was almost too much. After all those years, he had finally become the one betrayed. Reading his message stirred up a whirlwind of emotions: anger, sadness, and a bit of satisfaction. Part of me wanted to ignore him entirely, but I knew he needed to understand the damage he had caused. I responded, telling him our son had been raised by a real father and that he had no place in our lives anymore. To make things clear, I sent him a picture of my husband, our son, and me, happy and complete as a family. Then I blocked him, ensuring he couldn't disrupt our lives. Later, I reached out to Laura, a friend who worked with Nathan. She told me he had been struggling since his breakup with Jessica, showing up drunk to work and making scenes. She said he was on the verge of getting fired, which felt like karma finally catching up to him. Although hearing about his troubles was sad, it also gave me closure. I no longer felt any guilt for cutting him off. My family was whole, and I wasn't going to let him jeopardize that. Recently, I shared everything with my husband. He listened patiently, offering nothing but understanding and support. Our talk helped me realize that while I felt justified in my anger, holding on to it wasn't healthy. I wanted to free myself from any lingering resentment, knowing I couldn't let Nathan's mistakes define my happiness. Since then, I've started therapy to fully process my feelings, committed to focusing on the family I have, rather than the past I left behind. Every day, I'm grateful for the life we've built. My husband has been a wonderful father to my son, who has grown up in a home filled with love, stability, and support. Seeing the bond between them reassures me that I made the right choice by moving on and allowing my husband to adopt my son. I don't regret the journey it took to get here. The struggle has only made me more appreciative of the family we now have. In the end, Nathan made his choices, and now he's facing the consequences. He chose to believe in Jessica's lies, to abandon our marriage, and now he's the one left alone. I have my husband, my son, and a life filled with love and peace, which is all I ever wanted. My journey isn't about revenge or resentment, it's about letting go, cherishing the family I have, and refusing to let Nathan's mistakes hold us back. I'm finally free of the past, focused entirely on my future with those who truly matter.
Did you hear? Emily has been catfishing her old high school friends by pretending to be a wellness coach just so they'll buy her overpriced smoothie recipes.